Welcome everyone, and welcome to Relationship Secrets Revealed. I am your host, Ryan Matsumori, and I'm a men's relationship and communication coach. And I essentially support men to be able to embody the movement from living from head into their heart. And so that they can more deeply connect with themselves, so that they can then more deeply connect with the women in their life and children in their life. And it is a deep honor of mine to be here with you today to support you, as well as to bring in such an amazing speaker today to provide so much heart, so much wisdom, so much insight to support you on your journey of love, your journey of self, your journey of relationship. Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're single or in a partnership, or whether you're exiting a partnership, this man has so much to share. And so I really invite you throughout this whole series to use this time that you're spending to really tap in and to really let yourself slow down. We don't do that enough these days. And so I invite you to be really intentional with this speaker, and as they share, really be intentional with yourself. Feel the parts that are true and that come up, and honor yourself. And so I'm going to bring the speaker in now, and I'm going to read more about his amazing bio so that you can really get a feel for him. And then we'll jump into a conversation that will support you on your journey. Welcome, PJ.
Thanks, brother.
It's so great to be here with you right now. And I'm going to share with the audience right now more of who you are so that they can really get a feel. And then if there's anything else that you really want to share, want them to know, please add that in. And for the audience out here, PJ is an award-winning international speaker and success strategist, and supports men and women who believe in, want, and who are committed to having a healthy and happy relationship that includes more kindness, patience, openness, and honesty. You know, all the things that we want in our ideal relationship, and all the things that so often we fail to embody ourselves. And so despite PJ's disability, which, by the way, was expected to take his life at 7 years old. Despite that, he chose to live, and he chose to live well, and he continues to choose to live well. And I'm going to run through a few of these things here because it's just so extraordinary that any person would be doing these things. You know, I know so many people and come across so many people that have lost this vitality for life. And PJ is this embodiment of vitality for life. And so he sails, he does outdoor skydiving, he does indoor skydiving, which personally, by the way, once you get through the thrill of the outdoor skydiving, I love the indoor skydiving much more. And, you know, we can have
it's really cool. You feel like you're actually flying, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Outdoor skydiving, indoor skydiving, trapezing, ziplining, hiking, mountain climbing, snow skiing, water skiing, aqua jetpacking. I haven't done that. That's something I really want to do. And so many more things. This man is the embodiment of life. And he's an international traveler, painter. He's a published author. He's a 10th degree black belt. He's a women's self-defense instructor, meditation teacher, speaker, success strategist, and former wheelchair athlete. And I'm just going to include a few more things here. PJ is also the founder of 2 nonprofit organizations for disabled sports programs. He's also been included in the National Hall of Fame for people with disabilities. He was awarded the Distinguished Gold Dragon Medal from the Bujinkan International Dojo, and he was nominated to carry the Olympic torch through the Tuscan 2002 Olympics. Tucson. Thank you for that. Thank you. I was thinking it was in Italy.
That would be very cool. Yeah, it was Tucson, Arizona.
Thank you for that correction. All right. So PJ, that's what I wanted to share with the audience of my connection with you and what I know about you. Is there anything else that you would want to share with them?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always a little humbling to hear your own bio. Humbling in the sense that you go, holy crap buckets, I've done a lot of stuff. That's amazing. Or, holy crap buckets, I haven't really done much with my life yet. That's not so amazing, right? So it really illuminates when somebody tells your story and you hear it back, even though you know what the story is. And so maybe we can start with that because there are a couple of things that I want to say about that. And maybe just one little quick thing about myself is when we start to look at ourselves authentically and we say, okay, you know what? I'm taking responsibility for this part of my life. And by doing that, I'm seeing all the things that I did really well and all the things maybe I didn't show up for as well as I could have. And by starting our that level of awareness and that responsibility, we can now shift into something that works better for us moving forward. If we look at ourselves and we say, I don't like the way I did that. How would I like to handle it differently or better next time? That's a critical component in your evolution for dating or for improving your relationship with yourself or with your romantic partner. And I think that's really important because a lot of times men specifically have this tendency of, okay, are we past that now? You're not angry anymore. Forget it and move on. But the problem is that if it ever comes up again, it's coming up because it was never resolved. Excuse me. So I would much rather myself and men, especially, find ways of resolving the conflict with their partner. And unfortunately, we see a lot of women shifting lately into more of a masculine role. And so while we see men shifting because they were raised by women, shifting into this place where a lot more men are becoming open-hearted, which in my opinion is really valuable, that they have that physical strength, that masculinity, but also that ability to be open-hearted. It's beautiful. The problem is that we're seeing that some women are shifting equally into this place of, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Just forget it and move on. And it doesn't matter whether it's the man or the woman saying, just forget about it. Let's just move on. It still hasn't been resolved. And so I'm seeing a massive shift in that way. And I have been for probably 10 years now. And the one thing that I want to add about me, if I can, just quick side note, is 2 years ago, I'm not supposed to date my interviews, right? So we'll say March of 2019, I was in Vegas and caught some kind of crazy virus. I lost 85% of my strength in about 2 weeks and about 50% of my lung capacity. Why is this relevant? How is this relevant to your audience? Because it's that idea of I had friends show up, I don't know, a few months later and stay with me. I had a lot of people stay with me during that period of time because I went from being relatively independent to being almost completely dependent. And a little less than a year later, I had some friends come and stay with me. And they said, man, you're still pretty happy and upbeat and positive. How is that the case? Like you literally are not the same physical person that you were. You're not as strong. You don't breathe as well. You can't do things. How is it that you're still upbeat and positive? And I said, I have a choice. I can feel bad and angry and upset and hurt and scared and sad, but feeling bad feels bad. Feeling good feels good. And if I have a choice, I'm going to choose to feel good. And I'm going to move forward with what I have. And when you move forward with what you have, that which you have expands. And so if you put this under the context of a relationship, if you move forward with the authenticity of what you actually have in this moment, whether you're with somebody and want to improve the relationship, or you're single and looking to like put yourself out there, if you move forward with what you really have and who you really are, then you get really comfortable expressing the truth of who you are. And now you can expand into more because you've built a real solid, strong foundation on the truth of who you are. One last thing about that. Again, I'm going to hold men accountable probably a little bit more maybe than I do women sometimes, is men will say, yeah, well, this is just who I am. So just like live with it, right? Or just accept it or move on. Maybe that's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the frustrations in the mind and the limitations that we put on ourselves and the unwillingness to look at ourselves and make ourselves better. I'm talking about saying, well, this is like what what I want in a relationship. This is what feels good. This is what's important. This is what's not important. This is what I won't stand for. This is what's not okay.
Mm.
This is what I really want. So being open and honest and authentic about what they want in the relationship also, that extends beyond just the sexuality of a physical or a physical relationship with a romantic partner.
Wow. PJ, there was so much in that. And thank you for that. I really feel your truth, your heart, and your conviction. And the things, kind of the themes that stand out for me in what you shared. The first thing was choice, choosing your experience that you talked about. The second thing that I heard was being who you truly are. And then the third thing that I heard was knowing what your needs are and communicating that. And so choosing your experience and knowing who you are and knowing what your needs are and communicating that. And just taking a look at the first one that you mentioned, that choice, choosing to be happy, choosing to be joyful, choosing to, as many would put it, look on the positive side of things. Like, we hear that all the time. And for so many of us, because we're human and we're these biological, chemical, emotional beings, I'm curious what you may be able to speak to around actually being able to truly choose happiness and joy and pleasure and openness. Because sometimes we try to choose it, but it doesn't change the way that we feel, no matter how hard we try. And so anything you can share around that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of depth. Excuse me too. There's a lot of depth in what you're saying. We could literally do an entire weekend workshop on just this alone.
Yeah.
So let me break it into two pieces, choosing to be happy and then the how to, right? That's what I'm hearing. And so let's start with the choosing to be happy. I believe that there are two options for you: reaction and response to a situation. A reaction is a slave action. A reaction is a slave action because you don't have control of it. It has control of you. Have you ever, think about this, have you ever had a difficulty with a partner and you got angry and you let out some of that anger? And that's not necessarily bad, but you look back on it later and you're like, oh, I could have or should have, or I wish I had expressed that differently. And now I feel guilty. I feel bad. Now I have to make up for it. I have to figure it out. I have to apologize. We have to have this big discussion. And had you just responded differently, the whole conversation and dynamic of the situation or weekend trip or wherever you happen to be out on the date profoundly could have changed. The entire relationship could have changed. So it's not often what you said, it's often the way that you've chosen to say it, right? And let me even rephrase that. It's often the way you've said it, right? Whether you've chosen to say it is a response, or whether you've reacted and said it and you're like, oh, I can't get that back. That's out there now. That's a really important function of being aware. So I'm going to give you guys something that I talk about all the time, which with my clients is art. I believe that we're all artists, we're all creatives. And by art, what I mean is awareness. You have to be aware of how you're feeling first. So if we're talking about how to make the shift into happiness, you have to be aware of how you're feeling. Do you like how you're feeling right now? If you don't, then you get to ask yourself, how would I rather feel instead? Two simple questions. Do I like how I'm feeling right now? Yes or no? If I don't, how would I rather feel instead? So now that's the awareness of it, right? If you're aware that something is not going well, or you're aware that something's going really well, you want it to be even better, right? That follows the same pattern, the same format. The next letter is R, right? I can react, right? But remember, reaction is a slave action. So the moment it's out there, now I'm like, oh, whatever. Like I didn't really mean that. That wasn't what I meant. But you reacted in a way that it came out. So some part of your brain, your unconscious brain probably, was in defense mode. And defense means get away from me. It means I'm putting on my shield. It means I'm putting on my breastplate, my armor, so you can't get to my heart. I'm putting on my shield to keep you at a distance. I'm putting on my helmet so I can't hear you. That's probably not the best way to have a relationship. But A response means that I have options. And if I have options, I have choice. And as long as I have options and choice, that means I have freedom. So a response is a choice. That's critical. Now, how do you do that? Multiple ways. It just depends on who you are and where you are and what the situation is. But let me tell you two very simple ways that I teach. Again, I teach my clients. And this is the T, the technique. So A.R.T, awareness, responsibility, preferably overreaction, and the technique. Excuse me. The technique is one of two things. A, letting go or releasing the internal resistance that you have, or B, taking empowered action, meaning being courageous enough to overcome the obstacle instead of just closing a blind eye to it or turning your back on it or ignoring it. Okay. So, how do you let something go so that you can feel the happiness? You simply can ask yourself, okay, do I like how I'm feeling? No. Okay. What would I rather feel? I'd rather feel patience and love for my partner. Okay, great. So, what technique are you going to do? What is it that you're holding on to that you want to let go of? So, as soon as you recognize what you're holding on to that's causing you the problems, you can reframe that. And I'm being very, very basic right now, very simple, because we can go into much more depth depending on the situation. Excuse me. And I want to wrap this up quickly because I don't want to commandeer the whole conversation. So when you look at letting something go and reframing it, if you literally stop for a moment and go, do I really understand exactly why this person is doing it? And I would argue absolutely 100% you don't. You don't. So if your partner or your date for the night is upset about something, and even if they say, I'm upset because the way you spoke to me right now in front of those people, right? Well, is she upset because she feels disrespected? Is she embarrassed? Is she hurt? Is that something that her dad used to do to her? Is she internalizing it, making you've made her feel like she's not smart enough? Like until you really can understand where she's coming from, and if you look at that, and you're like, oh, that wasn't what I meant at all. Now this shift goes from like anger to oh, I feel a little bad, right? So how do you shift it into happiness? You have to be able to neutralize sometimes. So you got to go negative to neutral to positive. So if you can't shift your emotion from negative to positive, right? You hear all the time, turn that frown upside down. If you're having a hard time going from negative to positive, neutralize it by thinking about something completely different, by bringing up a completely different topic that you're really interested in. Apologize and then move into something completely different. When you move into something completely different, the brain shifts and releases the attachment and the worry and the fear of this old stuff for a moment so that you can focus on something else. That opens the door to the next option, which is freedom or happiness. Again, I'm being very general. It's much easier if we've got a specific situation. And then empowered action is you go, look, I felt happy before. I know what joy feels like. I'm just literally going to choose to be happy. And you can't, when you start looking at letting go and empowered action or releasing resistance and overcoming obstacles, what you realize is they look like the yin and the yang, right? That circle, the black and the white symbol with a little white dot inside of the black section, little black dot inside of the white section, and they start to bleed into each other. So you can't actually shift your emotion from frustration or anger or confusion into happiness and joy unless you let go of the other stuff first, right? And it takes an empowered action to be able to let go. It takes a certain level of power and authority over your own mind to be able to say, I'm going to let go of this so that I can choose this instead. I've practiced it for years and years and years. So it's really easy for me just to go, okay, how would I rather feel? And I go, okay, I take one breath, one clearing breath, I take a deep breath, I pause, and then I exhale. Because here's the thing, when you get stressed, the muscles around your lungs, around your rib cage tighten. And so when you take a deep breath, it's not the deep breath that creates the meditation. It's the deep breath that stretches out the muscles around your rib cage to allow you to reestablish a natural breath, a natural routine. So often I'll teach my clients 3 deep breaths, hold it to stretch, exhale long and slow, and then do it again, stretch again, and then exhale long and slow, and stretch again by breathing in deep. And then at that moment, you can simply say, okay, what would I rather feel? And you can simply shift into that feeling and say, well, I'm going to feel this. And the only reason you won't be able to feel that is because you're not in control of your mind. You're still looking at what your mind wants you to look at. So last thing I'll say, just so I don't commandeer the whole conversation, you, the conscious you, is still looking at what the unconscious mind wants you to look at. The unconscious mind is like, look at this frustration, look at this anger, look at this confusion, look at this irritation, because I want you to look at this. Because if I can get you to look at this, I can make you uncomfortable. If I can make you uncomfortable, then all of a sudden you won't do that again. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to make sure that you don't do that again, because this is causing us pain. But I'm going to keep telling you about it, going over and over and over again, and forcing the guilt on you, because I want you never to do this again. And I'm just going to keep doing that. The conscious mind has to resolve that. As soon as the conscious mind goes, oh, well, here's what I want to do about that next time. Here's my plan. Yes, I'm committed to it. And here's the moment that I'm going to start it. If my girlfriend or my wife or my partner, and this goes both ways for men and women, okay? If my partner says this, or I say this, and I see their face make a funny face, here's my new plan. I know when to enact my new plan. Here's what my new plan is. And here's the starting point. I know when I need to enact my new plan, and here is my and I am committed to that. You run through that 3 or 4 or 5 times in your brain, the guilt and the frustration and the anger and the disappointment dissipates. Why? Because this unconscious mind over here doesn't need to keep telling you to do this, or to keep pushing the pain and the suffering onto you, because you, the conscious you, have already said, okay, I don't like that. Anytime that I find myself in that situation, here's my new plan. Here's my starting point, my trigger point, and I'm committed to it. The unconscious mind goes, okay, cool. Well, I don't have to remember this anymore. Conscious brain goes, nope. Now all of a sudden, it's super simple for you to go from frustration or fear or sadness or whatever into the happy and the joy. I know that was really long-winded. I was trying to make it general, but I hope there's some good stuff.
Yeah, PJ, there's so much gold in that. And just to come back to where we started, all of that was encompassed in how to choose a different state of being, how to choose happiness, and actually have that come about, versus being this battle between this mental game of choosing it, but your body not reacting and actually not feeling differently. And you led into your acronym ART. And a big thing that I really want to share with the audience here that you touched upon in different ways with the R, with the reaction and the response that you mentioned. So much of that, and this is something that I do with my clients, fundamentally train around when we work together, is being able to regulate and control your own physiological nervous system. If you're not in control of your nervous system, if you don't have the practices, if you don't do the practices, when something happens, your heart rate increases, adrenaline gets released, cortisol gets released, the stress hormone, and now you get into this sympathetic nervous system state of fight or flight, and you react from fear, from your guards, from your barriers, because you don't know how to regulate and control calm and of your nervous system. And so what
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what I was hearing and what you're saying is you've done these practices so much, so often, and that's doing the work. That is what's necessary to change our state of being, to change our experience of ourselves and our life and our relationship, is the practice and the work. And you've done so much of that it's now easy for you to change your state in the moment because you've done the practice. And so that's something I really want to get across to the audience, is learn to calm your nervous system, regulate your nervous system, because as PJ mentioned, then you can be at choice. Then you can choose your response. You can come into alignment of the impact that you want to have. You can stay open-hearted without the barriers coming up, without the closing coming up. And that's when we can stay in connection with another person, when we are able to get past our own reactions. And that's so
important. One thing that supports that is curiosity. If you care enough about the other person, or you care enough about resolving the conflict, and you're like, wait, I don't understand. Don't just stop at, I don't understand. Stop at, and I want to find out how. I want to understand where you are. I want to understand what's bothering you. Even if there's not a partner involved, you can do the same thing with yourself. Get curious, become curious, start to really explore. Some people will journal. I like to talk to myself in the mirror, and I can get out about 85% of what's going on. And then I'll go to a journal and I'll write some more. But eventually, what happens is you'll get out what's bothering you and you go, oh, there's the culprit. There's the hook. I swallowed this hook, meaning I believe something. If you think about going fishing, right? Sometimes when you're fishing, a fish gets so excited, it swallows the hook. It bites and swallows the whole hook, not just in its lip, but it swallows it. And you can't pull that hook out or you'll tear the guts out. And so you have to cut the line, put the fish back, and hope that the fish will be able to live and feed itself around where the hook is caught, and that the internal guts will heal itself, and that it usually will. But with us, we want to get it out, and so once we get it out, we realize it's out. That's what's actually bothering me. I was saying all this other stuff, but as soon as I get it out through journaling, through talking to yourself in the mirror, through talking to a friend, your internal mind wants it out. Your unconscious mind wants to be able to express what's bothering you, because the unconscious mind is responsible for 3 R's and the conscious mind is responsible for 1 R. The unconscious mind is responsible to remember, recall, and reveal. It's supposed to remember everything, even though sometimes we don't remember. We're like, wait, I forgot. It's still inside of your brain. And sometimes it recalls it at the most inopportune times. And then the reveal is when we're looking for a friend to talk to, or we're looking for a therapist, or we're investing in ourselves and getting a coach and saying, hey, you know what? I really could use a partner in this process. I need somebody who will lock their shield with me against this behavior inside of me, against this feeling, so that we can figure it out. And what happens is once you start to talk about it and you get it out, right, all of a sudden you start to feel better because you've thrown that up. Now, if you're by yourself and you talk to the mirror or you journal, what happens and you ask yourself questions, it's dialogue between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. What's beautiful about that is the unconscious mind is being given a voice. And that's when it's getting a chance to reveal what's actually bothering it. So I will say to myself, what's bothering us today? Why are we frustrated? Why are we sad? Why are we hurt? Why are we struggling? Why are we disappointed? And I say we because I want the unconscious mind to feel like I'm part of it. I'm with it. We're together. It's not separate. It's my best friend. It's not my adverse. It's not my my enemy, right? It's not adversity. It's an ally. It's a friend. It's a partner. And so then the R that the conscious mind is responsible for is it is responsible for resolving the issue. So as soon as the conscious mind goes, okay, well, this is what I want to do about that situation, the unconscious mind can now let and relax and let all of that other stuff go, and it stops recalling that problem because the conscious mind has resolved the conflict, has resolved the issue. It's about conscious processing. But the problem is, it bothers us so much because we're letting our unconscious mind process, and it just ruminates and ruminates and ruminates and ruminates, and it just ruminates like that. It's crazy town. It makes us crazy. We start to blame somebody else. Well, you did this to me. This otherwise I wouldn't be like this. I wasn't like this before you, and now my brain is ruminating. It's ruminating because you, whoever's listening, including myself and Ryan, we're letting, listen to what Ryan said earlier, controlling your own nervous system. We're letting our unconscious mind run through the process of attempting to process, to understand, to resolve the conflict. The unconscious mind it's not designed to resolve the conflict. The conscious mind resolves the conflict. The unconscious mind reveals it when the conscious mind has a dialogue or a conversation with it. Talk to yourself. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Journal. Grab a best friend and say, can I just throw up for a little bit and get it out?
PJ, so many pieces of all you shared are topics that we can have full-on conversations about.
Full-on workshop weekends, bro. Man, we could do like a full weekend workshop on just one of these pieces.
And a big theme that I'm hearing in what you just shared right now that I would like to expand upon
Yes.
is self-responsibility. And a lot of people have a negative relationship to responsibility that's conditioned through our upbringing and through work, where responsibility is burdensome and we don't like responsibility because of the weight and the burden. But self-responsibility is not burden, it is opportunity. And so what I'm hearing and what you're sharing, and so this is a big philosophy of mine. What I see around me, and we see this all around the world, is everyone is looking at everybody else, pointing a finger and saying, nope, you need to change. Nope, you need to do this. Nope, you need to do this. And it's just the world and people pointing at each other, and nothing freaking changes. So all we can do is look in the mirror and take 100% responsibility for myself. Another way said, in relationship, in business, and anything, I might really think I'm 99% right and 1% wrong. So now all I get to do is focus 100% of my energy on the 1% that I am wrong and raising myself. And when we all look in the mirror and do that inner work, that's how the world changes. Another kind of way said is world peace is achievable through inner peace. And that's the work that we get to do. And so thank you for bringing that in, because so many people don't know about the depth of what self-responsibility means. And it's scary and it's burdensome, and it's our access to freedom. And it takes training. It takes learning things we were never taught about our mind, about our body, about our nervous system, about our conscious, about our subconscious, about our belief systems, and the way that we're just interpreting things around us. And so I'm going to pause because,
Well, let me jump in and add,
yeah,
if that's okay.
yeah,
So you're talking about responsibility as um, this opportunity. Let's look at the word responsibility. The option to respond.
yeah,
The ability and the option to respond means I have the ability and the option to respond how I want to. And if we don't choose that self-responsibility, that's so important, that I 100% agree with you on. That radical responsibility, not my two words I put together, somebody else's two words, but I love it and I steal it because I can't remember who said it. But radical responsibility is such a great concept. When we take radical responsibility, all of a sudden that blame that other people, because we might be blaming other people, but they're blaming us. And if we accept the blame, now there's frustration, now there's resentment, now there's anger, now there's disappointment, now there's embarrassment, all this crap. And so if we instead choose that self-responsibility that you're talking about, that radical responsibility, that inner peace that you're talking about, when we do that, all of a sudden we have the ability to now choose how we want to feel. It's the willingness, like you said, people that have that responsibility, they feel like it's burdensome. I've got to do this. I have to do that. Well, if you use those kinds of language, like I have to, I need to, I must, all of these kinds of words create a sense of slavery. All living sentient beings resist being a slave. No human being, no good man, no good woman, no animal wants to be a slave. Every living thing wants to be free. And it fights and resists any kind of slavery. So if you're saying to yourself, or if you're believing internally that all the blame that people, all the fingers that people are pointing at you, right? If you feel like responsibility means I have to say, yes, I did that, that's not really what responsibility 100% means. It may be part of it, but you get to look at that and say, hey, you know what? I did do that piece. Here's how I want to address that and resolve that. Here's how I want to address that and resolve that. Not that I'm going to accept that you tell me I have to do it in a particular way, because then all of a sudden what you're doing is you're saying, hey, you know what? I'll own that. And here's how I want to correct it and fix it moving forward. Now that may be where you say, how can I fix that to make things better for you? You're okay to do that if that's the response that you would like to have. It's important to recognize, though, that responsibility does not mean that you take ownership of 100% of what somebody else is saying you're doing and causing in them, because remember, we all have internal triggers. So in a relationship, if somebody says, oh, you're triggering me, you always trigger me when you do that, can't you just stop doing that? It's not just, hey, I have to stop behaving in a particular way. It's a two-way street where we go, how about if the conversation looked more like this? You know, babe, when that happens, I feel this trigger inside of me. So here's what I'm trying to do to not be triggered by that anymore. But is there any way that you might also think about saying to me or doing things this way instead to help me while I'm working through letting go of that trigger?
Mm.
Because I want to make sure that I don't have the trigger. So even if that comes up again later, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's okay. But it'd be really nice if you could help me while I'm working through it.
And
See the difference? Yeah, please tell me.
yeah, and I just wanted to pause you there because
No, I'm done. That's perfect.
I really want the viewers right now to pause and really feel into what you just shared. Because PJ, what you just shared in communication, in relationship, that's vulnerability, that's intimacy, that's love, that's trust, that's self-awareness.
It's
And
courage. It's courage also.
it's a tremendous amount of courage. And the way that you describe that conversation going, I hardly ever hear in relationships. And typically it's defense mechanisms and barrier, and because we're in pain and we're made wrong, we make each other wrong, and now there's just this chaos. And so I really want the audience to connect with what you just shared. And the examples that I heard in that is first, like kind of self-awareness. Hey, you said something to me and wow, I notice that that's making me feel a certain way inside. That's awareness. That's awareness of feeling and emotion combined with courage and vulnerability of sharing, wow, this is how I'm feeling right now. And then it's ownership, like I'm taking responsibility for what I said and what I'm working on, and I'm feeling this way. And are you willing to partner with me and maybe say it in a different way that you know can be more supportive to me as I'm taking responsibility and working through these things? Like there's so many nuances in that example that you gave. And I just want the audience to step into those parts and feel into where they can improve in their communication around being able to pause and notice what they're feeling in their body, identify the emotion without making the other person wrong, and then having the courage to share that without making the other person wrong, with having the courage of owning what they can take responsibility for, and then making the request kindly, open-heartedly around having the partner support them and communicating what that would look like, again, without making the other person wrong. If people can do that, this world has changed forever. And it kind of goes back to what I shared. You get to be in control of your nervous system, because if you can't control your nervous system, you're not going to be able to be in that conversation. You're going to react, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you're never going to get what you want. You're never going to get the love that you want. You're never going to get the freedom that you want within yourself and in a relationship. And so I'm sitting with that right now. I want the viewers to sit with that. And then to also just take a pause and feel into everything that PJ has shared today. You know, what resonates with you in certain things that he shared, certain principles, certain ideas, certain practices. You know, what are things that don't resonate with you or confusing to you? You know, jot that down. These are all things that you get to take responsibility for in growing yourself and learning about and researching and integrating. And truthfully, PJ, I know you do transformational work as I do, as professional coaches, and how we impact people's lives. What we do is not information gathering. There's an overwhelming amount of information. What we do is transformational. And so I really invite people to get out of the information gathering and get more into the integration of bits of information. Get a piece of information, integrate it. Get a piece of information, integrate it into your body, into your nervous system. Get out of your head in the accumulation of knowledge. When you're in your head, you're dead. And when you're in your head, you can't deeply connect with another. So
Can I add to that?
yes, please.
Okay, I want to add a couple of pieces. One, listen to how many times Ryan said integrate. Integrate. Okay, I want you to understand that the word integrate doesn't just mean bringing it into yourself. You're bringing it into yourself with purpose. You're bringing this new learning, this wisdom that Ryan and I are talking about, that the entire summit is talking about. You're bringing the pieces and the parts that make the most sense to you, not everything. a piece or two that makes sense. You're bringing it into yourself. You're making it a part of how you think, how you interact, how you articulate, how you communicate. Why? Because when you integrate, you are turning yourself into great. And when you integrate, you're making yourself great, into great. Think about that. The second thing is that Ryan held his hand up a couple of times, several times, and he said, without making them wrong, without making them wrong, without making them wrong, without making them wrong. I want you to hear that, without making them wrong. If I'm in a situation with a partner, if I'm in a situation with anybody, stranger or romantic partner or family member, if I am feeling frustrated or hurt or angry or disappointed or scared or embarrassed, I am the one who's feeling it. No matter what they're saying or doing, how I am choosing to receive what they're saying and how I'm letting that filter inside of my own mind and inside of my own body is 100% my responsibility. And consequently, I can't make them wrong because then I'm not allowing myself to integrate with the wisdom of what they're sharing, the information from where they're coming from. So I'm not letting myself go, oh, well, hold on, let me take that in. That's causing these kind of things to bounce around inside of me. I'm pretty unhappy right now, or uncomfortable, or embarrassed, or I just don't like I'm feeling in my body. How do I fix that? Don't worry about fixing it. Worry about being aware of it first. All transformation starts with awareness. All transformation starts with awareness. Change is inevitable. You and your relationship are going to change, or you and your single life are going to change. The question is, right? I say change is inevitable. Transformation is a choice. Think about that. Change is inevitable. Transformation is a choice. So if transformation is a choice, when you're aware enough to go, oh, that hurt, or oh, wow, that's interesting. I feel defensive, or I feel like hurt. Instead of blaming them, you should be thanking them, because what they're doing is saying, hey, did you know that you have a thorn in your side? Hey, did you know that you have a thorn in your paw? Hey, did you know that you have an infection in your gum? Hey, did you know that you have an infection in your mind? Hey, did you know that you have an infection in your heart? And you're like, I didn't realize that was there. Wow, this is amazing. Hold on, babe. Hold on. That's like, I've got this thing coming up. And she's gonna be like, what is going on? Who are you? You're like, hold on. I have this thing coming up. I feel this rage right now, or this sadness, or this hurt. I don't want to put it on you. I want to figure out why I'm feeling like this. So instead of putting it on them and pointing the finger, you're like, hold on, pause, right? And without making them wrong, remember Ryan held up his hand. So hold up your hands and just pause for a sec. Like, I don't want to make you wrong. I want to look inside, because I'm the one who's feeling it. If you're the one who's feeling it, it's not on them, it's inside of you. So you have the responsibility, the ability to respond or be a slave in reaction. Reaction is a slave action. So instead, I would rather say, hold on, babe, that's really good. What you're saying is really important I think for both of us, because what I hear you saying is this. And what it's doing for me is I'm feeling this feeling inside of me. So can you give me a minute just to think about like why is that bothering me? Why is that hurting me? Why does that hurt? And is that hurt like a pang of embarrassment? Is it sadness? Is it like a defensiveness? And you start to think about it and you're like, I think my dad used to say to me this, and it made me feel stupid. And I know you're not trying to make me stupid, but I think that's why I'm defensive, or why I'm quiet, or why I'm pulling away, is I'm afraid that I'm feeling stupid and I don't want to feel stupid. Your partner might say something like, babe, I'm not trying to make you stupid. I just want you to understand, or make you feel stupid. I just want you to understand that hurt me too. Now you're having a conversation. You're having a conversation. That's amazing. That's all we wanted. That heals so much. So many times, listen, communication is critical in any kind of relationship. And communication, we hear all the time that we think that communication is talking, but the most important aspect of communication is listening, not just listening to them, but listening to your own heart, right? Listening to your own body. What is it conveying to you? Because what it's doing is saying, hey, this so bothers us. And as soon as we can do the work and get through this, we're going to feel a lot better. We're going to feel lighter, more open, more relaxed, more honest. Doesn't that feel better? Wouldn't you rather feel better? I would, because it's a choice. You can feel bad, but feeling bad feels bad. Or you can choose to feel good because feeling good feels good.
Mm. Well, PJ, there was another thing coming up that I was going to share, and it left.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. And so, PJ, we're nearing the end of our time here together for the viewers. And what would you like to leave them with? We talked about a lot today, and this is men, women, couples, singles, people going through divorce. Anything that you'd really want them to take home today?
Yes. First, let me say this. I really targeted men, even though I knew that everyone was here. Forgive me for that. It was unintentional and something that I did. I think because I often hold us a little bit more responsible, because historically we haven't been as connected to our emotions. And I think when we're a little more connected to our emotions and how our body feels, and we're able to be courageous enough to talk about that, it resolves a lot of conflict on its own. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just simply starting with awareness. That doesn't mean that women are exempt. That doesn't mean that couples, aren't exempt. We want to make sure we're working together. So let me start with that. But this thing came up. I'm going to close my eyes because I want to feel it. I want it to come through me instead of from me. What I would love to leave everyone with is this idea that the deeper you look inside, the more you explore inside of you, the more you come to understand, the more you excavate. Let me say it this way. The more you excavate, the more you pull up, the more you pull it out. When you excavate something, you pull it out and you look at it, you clean it off, you look at it, you study it, you understand it. The more you can share authentically with other people. And think about this. When I excavate it, pull something up and out, we clean it off, we look at it, we study, we come to understand it. And then we put it off on the shelf somewhere like in a museum, right? And then we can come and look at it, but it doesn't have the same impact inside of us anymore because it's not in us anymore. And if it's not in me, then what happens with that empty space? It's empty space that makes space for the heart of somebody else or for kindness to rise in you, because your authentic self is love. Your authentic self is kindness. Your authentic self is courage. Your authentic self is intimacy, right? We've always heard intimacy as into me, I see. Integrate the things that feel really good in that empty space. That empty space creates space for the natural, authentic you to come out. All we're doing is getting rid of the infection. So excavate the toxin, figure it out, explore it, understand it, and put it on a shelf somewhere. Put it behind you. You put it behind you, you'll stop thinking about it. And I mean, like, literally think about that and go, oh, okay, well, that was an unfortunate situation. Let me mentally, in my mind, imagine putting this thing behind me. In fact, just throw it behind your back. Just let it go back there somewhere. And then all of a sudden, since it's behind you in your mind is projecting and thinking about forward movement. That thing that you threw behind you that was kind of gross inside of you won't have the same negative impact on you anymore.
Thank you for that, PJ. Thank you so much. The thing that, as you're speaking, that I'd like to leave the audience with today. Earlier, you mentioned what communication is. And so many people intrinsically think communication is about saying the right thing. And no, communication is about speaking your truth. And when you talk about excavating, what I really want people to leave with here at the end, learn how to give people the safest space that they've ever had before in their life to do the excavation, so that they can then share that truth. And as they share that truth, as they're exploring, as they're learning, do not take it personally. Do not take it give them the safest space where they can say whatever they need to say, uncover whatever they need to uncover without you taking it personally. And help them uncover more and more with the curiosity that PJ mentioned way earlier in this conversation. But if you can't create the space to make it safe for someone to do the exploration, it's not likely to happen. If you're constantly taking those things personally, they're not going to feel safe to be vulnerable and authentic and truthful. They're just going to say what they think you want to hear, and you're never going to connect and have the love that you really want. So again, kind of coming back to the nervous system, learn to control your nervous system so that you can be with people's truths without taking it personally, so you can help them uncover what's more there, because one flavor of that is hurt people hurt people. And when you can understand that, you can heal people, and you can help people, and you can just make yourself at ease because you're not taking so many things freaking personally.
Ryan, let me ask you a question for clarification for your audience.
Yeah.
A couple of times, I understand what you mean because you and I come from the same background, the same educational practices. Okay. But you reference the nervous system quite often. What specifically do you mean for somebody who goes, I don't know what you're saying. What do you mean, like, control my nervous system? What do you mean? I get it. But can you explain a little bit more? Because the people who want to get it, I don't want them to leave and be like, I don't know how. I don't know what he means. So if you can explain that a little bit more, that'll help.
Yeah, thank you for that so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of these practices, they're they're crazy simple. They're crazy simple. There's like, our human brains overcomplicate everything and make everything so complex. And our brains think it takes something so complex to change our lives. And that's where we fall short, because it's simple. And it's when we can understand that, we can begin to change. And so a few things here. A process that I really recommend for people. A lot of people go straight to meditation. Well, I'll meditate to like reduce anxiety, reduce stress, calm myself. And for a lot of people, meditation is frustrating as all get out. Like they're in their busy day, they spend the time to meditate, and they leave feeling more frustrated than peaceful. And now they dismiss meditation. And so what I recommend for people on their journey of self-peace, self-freedom, nervous system regulation, calming, control, start with moving the body. Just get back into some regular movement in the body, whether it's a walk, whether it's a run, whether it's dancing, whether it's rolling around on the ground, whatever you need to do, get back into your body. When you get into your body, you're no longer in your head. When you're back in your body, you can begin to notice how you're feeling. And then once you're in your body, then it's breath work. So first is body work to start. That's the easiest. Then you get into breath work and learning how to breathe in certain ways that can really calm your nervous system. One simple breath exercise is in through the nose, out through the nose. In through the nose, out through the nose activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your calm and your relaxation. In through your nose, out through your mouth, or in and out through your mouth typically activates your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight. So learn to practice breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. That will naturally calm your nervous system. The next thing is breathe in slowly for 4 seconds. Breathe out slowly for 6. Hold it for 2, and just repeat that. You can also look up box breathing that Navy SEALs use box breathing. So first is moving the body so you can get out of your head into your body. The next is breathing, and then step into meditation. Meditation is actually very advanced. And so if you're struggling with meditation, get into your body, learn breath work, then get into the meditation. So I hope that helps introduce some of the things that can really ground in what this means about controlling the nervous system and some tips and tricks of how to do that.
Remember, the nervous system is your brain. It's not just the nerves that run through your arms and your legs and your back. It's your brain, right? So what Ryan's really saying is learn to make your own decisions, and those decisions control your actions. They control your thoughts. They control your feelings. They control what you say. Okay. So he's just saying, learn to be aware of what's going on in your brain, and then choose to use that brain power in the way that makes the most sense for you. And starting with the physical, be able to reconnect with your physical. That's a really great place to start, because when your attention is in your body, It's no longer bouncing around in the chaos of your mind.
Yeah. All right, beautiful. Well, PJ, I would love to have you share with the audience. You have so graciously offered a gift to everyone, all of the viewers here. So if you just like to speak to what that gift is.
Sure. How about we jump on a call for 20 minutes, right? If you are out there and you're like, hold on, you said something that made a little sense, or I felt inside my body this resistance and this frustration, like I want to challenge that, just jump on a free call with me. 20-minute free call. Let's talk about where you are, what's going on. I can explain more of what I was talking about, or I can help you get through what might have come up for you in some resistance. Or if you just have a question, you've got another person to reach out to. You've got Ryan, and now you've got me if you'd like.
Hmm.
So just a simple discovery conversation,
Yeah.
discovering where they are and what they need and want.
PJ, honored to spend this time with you. Thank you so much for gifting yourself, your wisdom, your time, your energy, your space to all of our viewers today who are committed to growing themselves, growing in love, growing in relationship, healing this world together through that. Really, really appreciate you and looking forward to connect further.
Thanks, brother. It's my honor, my pleasure. And remember, everybody, change is inevitable. You're going to change whether you like it or not. Transformation is a choice.
Thank you, PJ. Talk soon.